What is going on with the Rockets? What is going on with Jalen Green? I'm going to talk about all of this right now. Tap in. Enjoy. The Rockets Chop Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basketball needs, for highlights, analysis, podcasts. We do it all here at the Rockets Chop Shop. Make sure you hit the like button on the videos that you watch if you enjoy them. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications from all the great drops that we have on the channel. Also, you can visit the Chop Shop merch store and get you some of the swaggiest gear in the Houston Rockets kingdom. And if you want, you can always support the channel directly through donations. And if you want, you can support us through our partnerships with our sponsors. The Rockets Chop Shop is made by fans, for fans, and we're going to keep rocking and keep dropping that heat.
This is something I know.
So the Rockets are coming off another road loss, and at this point, we just have to win all our home games, and we'll be fine, right, guys? We'll go, I think 41-43. But coming off another tough road loss, to me, one of their worst performances since the Orlando game. Did not like what I saw. The team looked disjointed. A lot of just miscommunication on both ends of the court. Guys looked just all over the place. And a large part of it is due to me, in my opinion, the Rockets are having a identity crisis on offense. And it seems that in their efforts to integrate Jalen Green into the offensive system that they want to run, it's really causing some issues because it's kind of exposing some of his weaknesses at this point in his career. And, a lot of times people really don't see the things that are happening, and you attribute a lot to players that really are a product of other players or within the system they're in. And the reason I'm saying this is that people think that, for example, like a guy like Fred VanVleet or even Alperen Sengun is limiting Jalen Green's ability to score on his own. And I think it's inverse the other way, right? Alperen Sengun, more than Fred, is a lot of the reasons that Jalen Green scores, because as it stands, Jalen Green does not have the body type or the skill set right now. Not saying he never will, or he won't get that as time goes on, to be able to score just by himself without having a screener. And if you look at a lot of the stuff that Jalen scores on, it's in a pick and roll or it's on handoffs. Those are two screen heavy actions that he is able to generate offense off of, because it does the job that his skills don't allow him to do, which is create space. And, we saw, the play yesterday where he did a spin behind the back. I mean, that's cool. But, how many times are you going to do that? How many times have we seen him do that in a game? Right. And honestly, I don't want him scoring like that, because in my opinion, as an offensive player, you really don't need to be doing all that to be effective. You just have to have IQ and be able to know where your spots are. And right now, Jalen does not know where his spots are. But from the game yesterday, it was, the game was, it started off really good. I mean, AD and Alp were going back and forth. The team was playing good. Jalen was playing aggressively. And then, Alp played the whole first quarter, the entire first quarter, matching up with AD. And the Lakers were really paying a lot of attention on him in the post. He was doing his thing on defense. And then when he went to the bench, it just crashed down. And that's a big problem the Rockets are having right now, because whenever Alperen Sengun is not on the court, the team just goes down in flames. And this issue is something that I kind of foresaw at the beginning of the year with the lack of depth on the roster. Things that I said the Rockets need immediately. This was from day one, a backup big man, because I never had any faith in Jock Landale, and now he's not playing. They need a backup big man. They need shooting. They need shooting and spacing bad. And lastly, they need another ball handler. And I think right now they're trying to kind of use smoke and mirrors to try to address those issues. When you look at the backup big man, they're using Jeff Green. But when you play a team with Anthony Davis, then it's kind of hard to do that, especially when you got guys like LeBron out there that are able to post up Jeff Green and kind of bully him. So that's going to be an issue when you don't have a big to protect the paint when Alp isn't out there playing. And then you go to the shooting part. Obviously Dylan Brooks started off shooting very well. He's back down to earth with his 3-point shooting. Jabari is a good shooter, But Jabari is really doing well, mostly inside the arc from there. Fred VanVleet, even though he's a good off-ball shooter, he seems to not really be able to shoot over closeouts because he's short, right? So you don't have a lot of guys that are just catch the ball and just shoot. The JJ Redicks of the world, the Gerald Greens of the world. So we don't have that, right? So a lot of our shooting is just generated from guys just taking, great shots. But when teams are playing the 3-point line close, when they're closing out well, those great shots turn to a lot of, pump fakes that attack the closeouts. Then you get guys that can't dribble going into the paint. The offense is just all over the place right now. And all we have right now, out of necessity, is Alperen Sengun in the post or Alperen Sengun pick and rolls with either Fred or Jalen. And to me, that's not diverse enough for an NBA team to be able to win meaningful games. And we don't have the players on the perimeter to be able to attach to an Alperen Sengun right now to even leverage how good he's playing. And when teams start trapping and double teaming him in the post, there's really nothing to punish them with. So we're at a point right now. Now, we had a Spaces yesterday on Twitter after the game just discussing this. And my friend Mike on Twitter brought up a great point. And this is kind of the elephant in the room right now, right? I think right now for Jalen, what he is going through is trying to figure out where he fits on this team and where he can impact and what his identity is as a scorer. In the previous years, we've seen Jalen go through the ups and downs and have stretches of where he's scoring great for like 3 or 4 games and then go a month straight being inefficient. And this is who he is. He's inefficient, and he is inefficient, and he is being given a lot of usage and a lot of opportunities to be able to be inefficient. The problem is, in those previous 2 years, the Rockets were trying to lose games. The Rockets did not care about wins. So it's okay to have a high usage, inefficient guard that is exploring his game. And, whether he scores 40 or 50 or whatever it was, the Rockets would either lose or win. It didn't really correlate to anything. And now when you step into this season where the Rockets are actually trying to win games, that play style and that approach to the game for him is not working. Meaning we're not going to let him go out there and take 25, 26, 27, 28 shots in a game because 1, there's better players around you, and 2, they're trying to win the game, right? So we don't have time for us to wait and guess whether you're going to have a hot shooting night. And so that's really what it comes down to for Jalen is how can he be effective with the skill set he currently has and also be who people expect him to be. That's where the issue lies for the Rockets. He is being put on a pedestal of this scorer and giving that ability and that freedom of this kind of elite scorer without actually being an elite scorer at this moment in his career. Now, we know he has the upside. Like I said, you don't, flirt with Allen Iverson's 5-game, 30-point record without actually being somebody that has the skill set to be able to score in the NBA. To me, where Jalen is lacking right now is this feel for the game. It's like if you tell him, Jalen, go be aggressive, that's all he's going to be, but that's going to be at the cost of playmaking. If you tell him, okay, just kind of read the game, he's going to read the game and just try to pass all game. So he can do one thing at a time right now, and which is okay and perfectly okay for a guy his age. And it's going to be a time thing that comes with them over time. But I think, to me, the Rockets need to adjust like what their expectations are for Jalen Green right now. And they may need to, and this is what Mike was saying, and this is a great question to ask. Do you want to bring in somebody that plays his position that can give you that 2-man game without P that we're missing right now? Because you think about all the great big men in the NBA, you have to have a partner in crime. There is no way that you're going to have a dominant big and be like, oh, that's going to win me games. Every big man that's dominant got a guy, right? Shaq and Kobe, right? You got Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. And you guys have heard me talk about even Sabonis and Fox. You guys have heard me talk about, the fact that for Denver, as great as Jokic is, when it's time for that game to close, usually Jamal is the one that's going to close it out in playoffs and regular season. Every great big man needs a perimeter player to be able to play with them. And right now, the Rockets don't have one. So I wanted to look at Jalen Green's high scoring games. He scored 40 points 4 times last year just to see the play types that he scored in for these games. So versus the Hornets on January 18th, 23, 41 points, He look at his split 66, 40, and 83. So high efficiency, 18 pick and roll points, right? That's a screen action. So 18 points out of the pick and roll, 8 handoffs, another screen action. There's 26 points off of just screen actions there. You can see that game, Alperen Sengun had 9 screen assists and 21 screen assist points, which I think in that day for all the games in NBA, it led the NBA. So once again, a bulk of his scoring, and you know, you got to think if he's scoring 26 points off of screens, you look at the others, 8 in transition, only 5 in isolation. So only 5 of those points of the 41 were generated out of just Jalen's quote unquote bag. We go to the next game versus the Timberwolves on January 23rd. Jalen dropped 42 on 66, 50, and 60 splits. 12 pick and roll points, 8 handoffs. So 20 of the 42 were out of screen actions, 8 were in transition, only 2 in isolation. I think he got to the line a lot that game as well. Alperen Sengun had 20 screen assist points created in that game. So you can see the correlation there. Then the Kings game, where he had 9 pick and rolls. He dropped 41. This was in February 8. 9 pick and roll points, 13 handoff points. So once again, 22 points out of screen actions, 6 spot ups points, and only 2 isolation points. Look at the splits: 63 from the field, 66 from 3, 78 from free throw. Alperen Sengun only had 9 screen assist points that game. And because, you know, he didn't play a lot of those minutes with Jalen, I think they were trying to match him up with Sabonis. And then against the Pels, once again, this is Jalen's most isolation points in his career, right? He had 10 pick and roll points, 4 handoffs, only 14, but 14 points out of the isolation. And you look at the efficiency goes down a bit, 50, 44, 100, when he plays a lot of ISO. And, you know, this kind of just shows you, like I said, he is heavily dependent. Now, how many games does Jalen actually had high ISO scoring? I wanted to look at this because I was curious. So we're looking at Jalen Green scoring in ISO for his career, where he scored more than 10 points in isolation. So Jalen has scored 3 times in his 2 years and 16 games or 17 games in the NBA. He's only scored in isolation more than 10 points in 3 games. You look at Anthony Edwards, and by his 3rd year, he had done it 15 times. Zach LaVine, by his 3rd year, who was a role player, 0 times. Devin Booker, 4 times. Bradley Beal, 0. And Bradley Beal had lower, he wasn't used as much as Jalen was. So the closest thing as far as to Jalen, as far as usage, and I'm going to look at their usage stat, is Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker, right? Because Zach and Bradley were both used as role players. And you can see that Ant is on a different level than everybody else, right? I think Ant is, out of the two guards within this generation of 2 guards, I think he's going to be the best, like by far, over Devin Booker, all of that, because he's just physically, game, everything. But having, the ability to score in isolation, to me, is also a symptom of his body type and being a bigger player. And Jalen and Devin and Zach and Bradley being smaller as they kind of matured in the NBA, they got bigger over time. That's going to come for, later on, right? The isolation scoring. But right now, Jalen Green is not big enough to be able to score in isolation. He's not big enough to be able to, bang in the paint, to bend the defense, to be able to get in there, use his athleticism, because he's just weak right now. Just needs to lift weights and get stronger. And the bag isn't there like you would have with a Devin Booker, who's able to have a skill set where he comes off screens and is able to do more things and has a more polished game at that age. You can see, though, one thing I want you guys to peep for these players that are having high usage, these 2 guards, let's see how it translates to wins for their team in their 3rd year. So currently, Jalen Green, 3rd year, we don't know what the win totals are going to be for us. So that's pending. But Anthony Edwards, once again, above most of his counterparts at 40 and 39 when he played in games with that usage level, that amount of isolations, that screams superstar. Right? That screams superstar, because he is actually within the context of a winning team, and he's also a player that is causing them to win, and he's doing so based on his own strength and merits. That screams superstar. Zach LaVine at that age was a role player, right? 16 and 31 in the games he played, his team was bad. Devin Booker, with that usage, 16 and 38 in games he played. He didn't play the full season that year, but when he did play, they were losing, right? Because that's what you do when you have a young 2 guard that's trying to figure things out. and you just let them shot chuck and let them shoot and do everything they want. And then Bradley Beal was really a role player, learning his way on a better team with John Wall and other guys, Gortat and all those other players on the Wizards teams, 37 and 26. So the point I'm trying to make is that, and this goes back to my point from earlier when I said about Jalen having the expectations not match his actual talent. Jalen Green falls somewhere between Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine right now as far as how his skill set is at this moment in time. But he is getting the usage of a player that's a star like Anthony Edwards on a winning team. So to me right now, the Rockets have a problem with how their roles are being defined on the team, right? We're attaching a lot of expectations to a player, in my opinion, who is not ready to fulfill those. And the quicker that the Rockets are able to identify that and they're able to understand that, the better it is for the team, right? Like Jalen Green is not going to carry our bench units. We need to accept that, right? He's not going to carry our bench units. He needs to be out there with other players that can help him. And I'm perfectly okay with that. And I'm going to shout out Drew Larson on Twitter. We on the spaces we had yesterday, he had a great suggestion. He had a great suggestion that I totally agree with. And I think, to me, that's the next pivot that the Rockets got to go to, is that instead of, when they go, the first quarter, it goes down to about six minutes. Usually that's when Jalen and a couple of the starters start coming out, right? That's usually when it happens. He is saying take Şengün out at that time too and let him come back in with Jalen and let them be the two-man combo. And I think this is something the fan base needs to accept. Without Şengün, Jalen is a very limited player. And that's okay, because once again, his archetype is something that you got to cultivate over years. And especially if his physical stature isn't up to par to be an Anthony Edwards right now. So I'm agreeing with that. Like, those bench units, it can't be just Jalen Green and Jeff Green and Jae'Sean Tate and Tari Eason and Aaron Holiday. That's not going to work. He needs another player to actually make his life easier. And the only player on the roster that's doing that right now is Alperen Şengün. Now, this goes back to the issue with the roster. How many damn times can you split up Alperen Şengün? Fred VanVleet needs him. The starters need him. Jalen Green needs him. That's on stone. They need to build a better roster. If we're really trying to compete, and I'm not saying they have to do it right now, but this is what we're going to have to deal with until they can make some adjustments. Now, you have to give them time. Obviously, it's too early for them to make any moves without a lot of the different deadlines for the trades start to happen, when players can be aggregated, where teams can make certain moves, when guys are available. We have to wait. So we just got to thug this out till January. There are still a lot of things they could do, like adjust some of the lineups. Some of the lineups Coach Udoka puts out are mind-boggling. But in my opinion, they need to get Jalen and Alp on those bench units together and just let Fred, Dylan, and some of the other vets play more together when they're not with Jalen and Alperen Şengün. To me, that's the quickest remedy right now. But the Rockets need to accept the fact that right now, Jalen Green is not the guy who anybody thought he was going to be, right? He is not that guy. He's not that guy. The question for him is that when will he become that guy, and how much patience do the Rockets have before they start making decisions? For me, you give him this entire season. If you start doing his contract talks, if he doesn't play well, that's a benefit for us in a sense that you can offer him a team-friendly contract and bank on his development over time for him to become the player that we know he can be. And then you go from there. But I don't know what Stone is going to do. I don't know what Ime Udoka is going to do. And then you get to the stuff where Uncle Mike on Twitter brought up, is that if you bring in another guy, what does that mean for the team's direction, right? Let's say we go trade for a two guard that can do all the things that we want them to do, right? How does that impact Jalen's development? Does he get pushed down? Now, Mike's motto is, I'm just trying to win. But I agree with that, but I'm also trying to win. But I don't think this season is the season that the wins are going to be like, oh my God, the Rockets only won 38 games instead of 42. Now, if this is something that's occurring after next season and Jalen is still inconsistent, hasn't added much to his game, then yeah, man, we gotta move on, right? We gotta move on. But I'm still gonna be in for the long run with this season. I still see the two-man potential with Alpi and Jalen. To me, if they need to unlock that, That's what we need to find a way to tap into that. And to me, that's what's going to take us there. That's going to be on Coach Udoka. How is he going to do it? How is he going to do it, right? And shout out to him for getting thrown out the game. That was funny, right? That was funny. I don't know what he said. I've heard a bunch of different stuff about it, but that was funny. I think he was trying to get out the game. I'd seen him talk to Ben Sullivan early after he got his first tech, basically giving him an alert like, bro, you might need to head coach in this game. So he was just trying to show, coaches. But I hate that a coach has to push that button. And we've seen that happen before. Once you push that button, you expect your team to respond. They got OKC on Wednesday. That's going to be a big game. It's a home game, so I expect them to play a lot better. But damn, can we get a win on the road? But, I just think right now the Rockets are at a crossroads, and it's okay because this is what it is. Like, this is what it is. This is what it is. This is part of the storming phase of change, right? There's going to be a norming, and then there's going to be a time where everybody accepts their roles, and that's when the team is going to be off and running. I say it's going to be in early next year, right? Maybe mid-January, going into the All-Star break, they're going to click. It's just going to be on the individual players. Like, they just got to figure it out. And this is, like I said, this is what it's going to be. And if you think about it, if I told you last year, once again, just let's step back and look at the expectations that your Rockets are going to be a team that's, one game below 500 at this point in the season, looking at this schedule that they had with the teams that they had to play, and be a top 10 defense, be top 10 in assist percentage, be top 10 in assist to turnover ratio, have one of the best transition defenses in the NBA and all of that, you'd have probably said I was lying. So as bad as these losses are in the macro, the team is, to me, they're ahead of schedule. And you got an all-star player in Alperen Şengün. So we're sitting pretty, guys. It's just this year is going to be a year of growth and understanding and figuring out what these guys are. And that's perfectly fine. But in the meantime, I do want to see some different changes in the way that we're lining our team up. I want to see some players get to play with each other. I want to see some things Coach Udoka can do to address the lack of depth on this roster and some of the struggles of our players. Jalen Green just has to play better, right? He has to play better. He has to exercise all that stuff from last year. Like I told y'all, he's the one that's going to take the longest to do it. But y'all let me know, man. Where is your stance on Jalen Green right now? Are you out? Are you in? You ready to trade him? Are you think it's maybe it's Fred's fault, maybe it's Ime's fault? Why do you think it's struggling? Let me know in the comments and in the chat. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop. We're gonna keep dropping that. Fire.